Well, yes, another mass shooting, this one more deadly than any before it. Omar Mateen's actions yesterday morning are being ascribed to the influence of ISIS, homophobia, mental instability, and the availability of high-powered weapons. So, what can government do? Also, the impact on a reaction from American Muslims and the LGBT community. These are our 3 points of discussion tonight. Congressman Mike Quigley is a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and he's vice chair of the Congressional LGBT Equality Caucus. We have him on the phone. Good evening, Congressman.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Congress is not in session right now, but in the past 40 or so hours since this horror happened, what have you heard from colleagues as well as from constituents?
Mostly extraordinary sympathy and sorrow for what's taken place. An outrage for the ability for this sort of thing to happen, and as you alluded to, a lot of references to the ability to acquire weapons designed for a theater of war, and weapons that someone who's even on a watch list can acquire if we suspect them to be a terrorist.
Well, that's the point. They followed him for about 10 months and found out that there was no credible connection that they could make to any terrorist tendencies. Yet he was still able to, without much effort, to acquire guns, including the AR-15 that he apparently used. The American public, we well know, Congressman, is on the side of more gun control, modest developments, not dramatically new kinds of measures. But is the time now right for some change here?
Look, I'd like to think I'm an optimistic person, but I suspect that the fact that nothing happened after Sandy Hook has diminished that. We're going to keep trying, but I have to make it very plain. Even if this killer was on a terror watch list, even if he was on a no-fly list, he could still, with a background check, acquire the gun that he obtained. And even if that rule changed, the fact is, even if he was denied because of a background check, as you know, he could go to a gun show in nearby Indiana and acquire anything he wanted without a background check. So I'd like to think that at some point the madness will end. The majority of NRA members want background checks. They don't want bad people to get guns. It is just amazing to me the stranglehold the NRA has on our Congress.
You are on an intelligence committee. Was this in any way an intelligence failure, or with the fact that you were just telling me there have been 70 planned attacks since 9/11, but all but 10 have been thwarted? Do we need to accept that intelligence agencies cannot just simply stop all of them?
Well, they can't stop all of them. I think the fear today is a couple things. First of all, what most Americans don't know is that we have cut back on Homeland Security, particularly grants to local communities to fight this type of attack, by 50% in the last 5 years. Second, the terrorists are going dark. When there's a lone wolf inspired by ISIS, for example, who does not communicate or uses encrypted apps, it is extraordinarily difficult to find and stop this person. So there's several aspects of this that are making this more difficult.
Sting operations have been successful in nabbing would-be domestic terrorists. Are other measures being discussed to try to get after this lone wolf you just noted?
Well, this is just the need for the intelligence community to be appropriately funded, the resources they need. As always, there's a balance between protecting the homeland and protecting civil liberties. That's something we've dealt with since the Republic was formed. I think there's an appropriate balance that still works. We're obviously struggling with that. It is a new world. And I tell my constituents, this isn't our father's war. You know, the enemy doesn't wear a uniform. The battle is on the homeland. It's probably never going to end, and it's multifaceted. We've never had a situation before where the enemy can come through a computer cable and inspire people in horrible acts or turn the lights off. So we need to change our focus. I think we did somewhat after 9/11, but after this attack and many others here in Brussels and Paris, we need to change our focus and ask ourselves continually, what really keeps Americans safe?
Something tangential to our conversation right now. You called for an end to what you did determine to be an outdated and discriminatory FDA ruling that many gay men are being prevented from giving blood. Do you think that that now will, in fact, change?
Well, it's something I started in 2009. It's a discriminatory policy that science outdates. It is taking a very long time to change. We finally got the government to change this a ban that banned gay men from giving blood for life to now a one-year deferral. Well, we still have a ways to go. This should be science-based, and it should be risk-based. I think that we're going to get there sometime very soon. It's going to take our continued efforts and, the assistance that we're getting from the blood banks, the American Medical Society, and others who realize this policy is outdated.
Do you think there is going to be an impetus in seeing that change? Are you planning to do anything specifically?
Well, I was the lead author of the letter and the plan to change this since 2009. So we have a renewed letter going into details, working with the HHS and others to change the policy accordingly. I think the American public understands the inherent inconsistency and the tragic irony of the shooting at the Pulse nightclub, in which thousands of gay men were offering to donate blood and were not allowed to.
All right, Congressman.
Again, not based on science.
Congressman Mike Quigley on the